What's going on, fragrance family? It's your man Gator, better known as the novice nose out here in these fragrance streets. Man, summer is starting to really creep up on us, man. We've had a few warm and hot days here in Atlanta recently, but it's still been kind of going up and down. Spring hasn't decided whether it wants to get here or not, man. But those dog days of summer are definitely coming, man. And one of the best DNAs to deal with that style of heat is from a house that shall not be named here, but their fragrance called Pacific Chill, where there have been some really nice inspired buys, interpretations of that DNA here over the last year or so. There's a new one to the fold though. It comes from Maison Alhambra, who's not new to any interpretations here, and it's this guy right here. This is their newest Jean Lowe. It's called Jean Lowe Vibe. And as you can tell here by the dent, I've been spending a good bit of time with this one, man, just to kind of see if it's the right vibe, pun intended here, for your summer, man. So let's go ahead and take this to the table and talk about it, man. Make sure you pull up, and stay tuned. So again, the fragrance we're talking about today is Maison Alhambra's Jean Lowe Vibe. Now, Maison Alhambra's put a bunch of fragrances out in that Jean Lowe series, most of them, interpretations from the house that shall not be named here. And this is kind of the latest one here. This one is oh Lord, I got fingerprints all over it that quick. But this is an inspiration of that house's Pacific Chill here. And if you look at the bottle here, Jean Lowe Vibe, there we go. You see it got a nice sized dent in here, and a lot of that is basically decanting out and testing. I wanted to test this one probably more stringently than I do a lot of other fragrances, just because of the DNA that we're talking about here, and because of some of the other interpretations of the DNA that are out there, kind of judging to see which one is not necessarily the best, but just trying to do a compare and contrast on these. So let me get into the notes on this thing right quick. So the notes on Vibe basically are parroting the notes on Pacific Chill. So top notes are coriander, mint, citron, lemon, blackcurrant, and orange. The middle notes are carrot seeds, May rose, apricot, and basil. And then the base notes are fig, ambrette, and dates. Now, matter of fact, let me go ahead and get a good, when I'm here, let me get a good spray on here. Now, as I usually do, always, I have the OG Pacific Chill on this arm. I have the, just sprayed, of course, the Maison Alhambra here on this arm here. So, when you first spray the fragrance, what you're getting is a little bit harsh, but it is that classic DNA that you expect from any interpretation of Pacific Chill. What you're getting is a nice fruity citrus blast with a good dose of mint that kind of hits you. Now, this one admittedly sprays on, and there was a little bit of harshness when I first got it. So what I did was I actually threw it in the maturation drawer, did my little process, sprayed it out, threw it in the maturation drawer for about a month or so, and then pulled it out. And that actually did give me a smoother vibe, pun intended, here on this fragrance. Now, when you first spray it on, you do get a slight little tinge of the alcohol nature here, that perfumer's alcohol, but it goes away like fleeting, right? So what you're getting again is that blast of citrus and mint here, and it just kind of caresses the nose and gives you this really pleasant, fresh feeling, from the opening notes. Now, of course, the biggest player in this fragrance. Most of the DNAs that are out there, the biggest player that people are looking for to make that appearance is the apricot that's in the fragrance. So it's more of a citrus blend that tends to be a little bit apricot heavy in Pacific Chill. Now Pacific Chill has better, or higher quality ingredients. Not saying that there's not high quality ingredients in this one or any other interpretation, but there is a definitive difference of scalability between the quality of the ingredients in Pacific Chill and anything else that it's inspired by. When you spray on Pacific Chill, you're getting kind of it's almost like a dry, like it's juicy, but you never took a fruit and you bit into that fruit and it was kind of sitting in the air for a little bit, and then when you come back to it, it's got almost this sour, pungent type of vibe to it, but it's still fruity and juicy. That's the way that the citrus, and specifically the apricot, comes about in Pacific Chill. It is not necessarily that way in Jean Lowe Vibe. You do get more of a citrus blend here. You're not getting like the apricot, at least in the opening, you're not getting the apricot sticking out very much. It is pretty much a harmonious blend of the citrus notes along with the mint. And you're getting a good bit of the sharpness of the black currant. So it is kind of pronounced in there. It is a pronounced note in that citrus blend, but you're mostly getting a pretty even citrus blend here. Now, to accompany the mint here, you're getting kind of a watery vibe that's coming from the fragrance here. It's beautiful. It's not quite aquatic in nature, but it is quite watery. It's quite fresh. Now, something interesting happens here in Jean Lowe Vibe that I don't get from most of the other variations, inspirations of Pacific Chill. And what that is it's the classic case of don't knock it, give it some time. As this thing kind of progresses into its like 15 to 20 minute mark, when I first smelled it, I was like, well, the fruit blend is kind of off, right? But it's getting there. It's close. It's really nice. It's really fresh. It's really pleasant. The mint, they got the mint right in here. Definitely got the mint right in vibe. But it's still kind of, just a little bit off as far as the way the fruits blend. Give it about 15 to 20 minutes. After that 20 minute, I'll give it even 30 minute mark, the apricot that's in here starts to kind of really peek its head out. Now, at the beginning, it's not like a huge player in the citrus blend. You're getting dominated mostly by your mandarin orange here, and a little bit of that black currant. But as it starts to progress, you start getting more of the apricot that kind of steps into the forefront. It wants to start taking the lead in this fragrance medley. So if it becomes like a watery nuance in this fragrance, a watery vibe with this all of a sudden sweet apricot that starts to kind of move into the forefront. Now, in the original Pacific Chill, of course, that apricot kind of makes its presence known a lot earlier. And as I said before, it is a more realistic, juicy type of apricot, but it's more realistic. It's not quite as sweet. And like I said before, it's got a little bit of a open air pungency to it, which, like, in my opinion, adds to the realistic nature of it. It feels like you actually have a apricot in your hand. Here, the apricot isn't quite as realistic, but what it does do is it gives you this uber pleasant, sweet apricot, and it starts to really move towards the scent profile in the air, more so towards Pacific Chill than a lot of the other interpretations that are out there. This surprised me going into that 30-minute to hour mark. It really started to nail, like I said, it already nailed the mint, but it really started to nail the apricot nuances here and watery nuances of what Pacific Chill is, just a tad bit lower quality. Now, when I say lower quality, of course, I mean, Pacific Chill's a $400 fragrance. This is going around $30, $35. Okay, so there is a little bit of something to be expected there, but it's not like this huge drop off. Like, this is a pretty high quality for what it is. It's got pretty solid quality to it. And like I said, it really starts to nail the presentation, at least in the way that Pacific Chill plays out. It starts to really nail that presentation going into that 30-minute to hour mark. Now at that hour to 2 hour mark, man, in that range, you start really getting dominated by the watery nuances of the fragrance. The sweet medley from the bottom comes up here a little bit. Your fig, your dates, those things kind of play in. Of course, they're super nuanced, super subtle. They're playing with the top notes of the apricot there, and just kind of blending in such a way that it's just kind of a harmonious type of linear, just beautiful presentation. And when I say linear, kind of goes that way for the rest of the life of the fragrance. It's basically that, where you're getting, just this really pleasant, minty, fruity, watery, fresh blend here that is perfect for summer wear, perfect for those hot days during the spring, man. This is one that will float in the air with the greatest of ease. It is a gorgeous fragrance, just like the OG is. I do find that this one is going to be a little bit lighter in the wear than the original is. However, longevity wise, this one actually lasted on my skin around 6 to 7 hours, while the original, usually I was clocking around 5 or 6. Okay, so it actually does have a little bit of, maybe just a tad of an extra longevity, or if not, they go about what as far as the way that this thing lasts on skin. On clothes, it's just like the OG. You spray it on, it's gonna be there till you wash it, because there's something about this fragrance when it gets on clothes that allows it to stick a little bit, and that especially the fruitiness, and I think it's more of the fruity nuance of it. When it gets on clothes, it just kind of allows it to continue to keep pushing off of those off of your clothes here. Now, the question that everybody's going to be asking is, how does it relate to some of the other interpretations that are out there? I mean, this is really good in my opinion, and there's a lot of people who kind of go off and don't really, pay this one as much mind. The biggest players, of course, out there when it comes to this is Lucianno's Coastal Breeze, of course, and then, of course, French Avenue's Pinus, right? Pinus White, because now they've got the Pinus Orange up there, and I got a review coming up on that soon. So these are three of the bigger players as far as that, and I'm not going to count the Alexandrias and all that kind of stuff, because in all actuality, when I smelled them, they were kind of first stage. When they were trying to nail the DNA, they didn't really get it. They were about as equal footing as something like Lucianno's Coastal Breeze. The difference between these that I find is that the Lucianno, the apricot is a little bit more brutish. Okay, you get a lot more of that apricot from the top of this fragrance, and it is a little bit of a sweeter variety of the apricot, not quite as natural, a lot more synthetic here. This one actually does kind of get in the wheelhouse a lot, really close to Pacific Chill, though, as it gets into the later Drydown. But at the top, it's just definitely like a kind of an overbear of the apricot here. Now, that being said, and the mint isn't as prevalent here as it is in vibe. That being said, this is a solid wear. I think it's a great interpretation. And then you have this one here. So the Pinus White, the biggest issue I have with this one, and actually with the Orange, is that they come across almost concentrated, right? They're super dense. When you spray it on, you've got a high density to the fragrance. The fruit blend here is off. by a lot. Definitely off by a lot. Instead of apricot, you're getting mostly kind of like almost a sweet orange. So it does have the mint and everything in there, but it's more of a sweet orange that you're getting in here than an apricot note. You do get hints of apricot that are in there and they're peaking, but it's not quite the same here. And the sweetness from this one kind of lasts throughout the life. So it's definitely, to me, the most off as far as like what the superstar note of the Pacific Chill DNA is, and that's kind of the apricot and blackcurrant mix there. But this one's actually pretty nice. It does, like I said, have a good bit of density as far as it leaves a nice scent trail for the time that it's around. I get somewhere in the range of about 5 hours off of this fragrance, so it's not bad. It really isn't. Like I said, it's just a lot sweeter than either one of these two is. And like I said, it's a little bit more dense than these, so doesn't really nail the watery aspects that you would get in the OG. These two do it a lot better, and to be completely honest, after looking at these three, I find myself reaching more, and I spent a lot of time with all of these. You can't really tell with this one, but I spent a lot of time with all of these, a lot of sprays, a lot of resprays and all that. I find myself reaching more for this one, and a lot of it comes into the play. Comes down to the way that the fruit blend kind of reveals the apricot 20, 30 to 40 minutes into the dry down. It becomes a little bit closer to what the original DNA actually is. It actually nails the wateriness. It nails the mintiness as well here. That was one of the bigger things for me, is that it nailed the mint pretty well here. So I'm not going to choose which one, because I think each one of these has its own utility, but I'll just say that I do find myself reaching for this one a lot more here. Either way, I think you're going to have a great warm weather scent regardless. But getting back to the main character here in this particular review, I really do like this. This has some severe utility, some great utility, I should say, for your summer wear. I think this is a quite affordable alternative to getting in the DNA wheelhouse of Pacific Chill. And that's such a great DNA that I feel like, you can't go wrong with wearing it and making it a staple in your collection for the summer. So final verdict on Jean Lowe Vibe. I actually like it a lot. I got to spend a good bit of time with this fragrance, man, and I've come to really appreciate this interpretation of that original DNA here of Pacific Chill. I mean, it nails the mint especially here, but it's got the watery vibes. It's got that apricot note that actually comes across a lot better than it was initially coming across when I first sprayed it on. This thing has a little bit of utility. Well, actually a lot of bit of utility for summers, man, with the price point, because it's around $35, maybe $40 at the max. I mean, this one is one that you can spray with confidence and not worry about it. Performance is actually pretty decent too. I mean, you're looking at about 5-6 hours here. Arm's length, as far as your projection, moves down into a nice little scent bubble around that 3rd and 4th hour here. But it's got a great sillage. People will smell this when you walk by, man, and I guarantee you there'll be people that'll be asking you, hey man, what is it that you're wearing? That smells good. And hey, that's the goal, right? You want to make sure that you are definitely turning heads out there this summer. That's all I got for this one, man. Have you put your nose on it? Let me know what you think about it here. And as always, guys, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with somebody you know that loves fragrances, man. And until next time, remember, as always, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you make today the best day ever on purpose. Peace out.